Hello everyone, welcome back to learning how to use ChessBase 12 for your opening repertoires. My name is Sean, and today we're going to continue our discussion of using ChessBase 12 for building an opening repertoire for you to train and practice with. In this case though, whereas in the last video we built one very quickly using a collection of games, but in this video we're actually going to build it move by move, piece by piece. Maybe we've got books we want to follow, or it's just the way our brain works. We'd rather do it that way. And to be honest, it's the way I'd rather do it. And it's slower and it's a little more painstaking, but it's what I like to do. I don't know. It's what I like to do. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you how I do it today. It's not the best way. It's not the only way, and it's just how I do it. So the first thing I want to do is just sort of point out what we've prepared with here. We need a reference database. I'm using Mega Database 2014, a reference database properties, and we've checked that off as reference. It's a database that has a lot of games, so we can always look at history when we're building our repertoire to see what other people have done in certain situations. As well, I've made sure I've got an opening book or a tree that was originally created out of the Mega database. It's almost exactly the same. I think it's a little bit older, so it's not 100% the same, but I'm going to be making use of that as I build my database. And as well, what I've prepared is my own list of games. In this case, I wanted a subset of games similar to what I would expect when I play. I'm a lower ranked player, so if I'm building a black repertoire, I not only want to see what grandmasters of moves have done, I want to see what people I'm going to be playing, lower ranked players playing white, what would they have done in this situation? What's common for them? Or what do they normally do? And it's not always the same as what a grandmaster might see within their opponents. So I've got that subset here of little under 230,000 games played by people at my level when they're playing white. So I'm building my black repertoire. I can see what they've done, and you'll see what I mean there. So that's what we need to start, but what we'd also need is we need our new database. So I've right-clicked, new database, and I'm going to build a repertoire for black. So let's call this black repertoire. And there it is. And we want to right-click on it, go to properties, and make sure we set it as a repertoire database. That's going to allow us some extra features and searches later on and some functions, which hopefully I'll get to in this video. So there it is. It's got no games, but there you go. Now remember, when you're looking at a normal game database, every line record represents a game between two people. And this is who played white and this is who played black. In a repertoire database, it's different. We're not putting actual games in the database. We're putting in lines that we want to use in our repertoire when we play. And under the white column, we're going to be putting down the name of the opening, and then under the black column, the variation that we're dealing with. So here we are here. We're inside the empty black repertoire, and I'm going to click on board, and I'm going to bring up a board. Now, when I build repertoire databases for white or for black, I like to keep the moves for the repertoire I'm building to a minimum. And I mean usually, most of the time, one move. I have my opening database and my opening books that show multiple moves for multiple things, but to me, the whole point for a repertoire or for a playbook is my preferred move. So we're building a black repertoire. It's going to have one move for black, multiple moves for white, and in each case, one move for black. And over time, as I'm learning and building and things, I may change that and I may make adjustments on what that one move is. And I might sneak an extra move for black once in a while for whatever reason. But on the whole, our philosophy is try to keep the black responses in this case, because it's a black repertoire, try to keep those to one move per. So how are we going to do this? What are we going to do? Well, we can just start entering. I've got a book here I'm going to work from a little bit. My guidance is from a book called Perk Alert, and it's by Lev Albert and Alex Chernin. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter whether you want that book or you even want to use the perk. We're just showing how we do it. You can use your own reference, whether you need a book or you don't need a book or you have your own analysis. The point is, you've got some lines you want to enter. I'm taking some from a book. You've got yours from your repertoire. So let's start this way. Imagine white starts the game with e4 and black moves into a perk defense. And so we have the very common perk opening, and boom, there we are. This is our perk defense. Now you might say, wait a minute, Sean, what if white doesn't do those moves? How are we going to prepare for that? Well, of course we have to prepare for that in our repertoire. White is not always going to go e4, but that's for another day. Today, we want this in bite-sized chunks. Today we're going to start from this position. All of the moves I'm going to think about come from this position today. And another day, I'll look at what happens if white doesn't do those moves. And ultimately, what happens if white does d4 and all the other options for white. But we need these down, broken into small positions. Okay, so we've saved. And here we've popped up. We're inside black repertoire. And enter the new game as white. Well, we're not putting a player's name. This is a repertoire database. And this is actually the perk opening. So I'll just type perk for now. And for now, this really isn't a line or anything. This is sort of my position I'm going to start from. So since this is the first position I'm working on in the black repertoire, I like to call this position 1. I like to do this from position. So I know my building block and my scope is going to be kept to that. As a matter of fact, actually, I put the position in the tournament, position 1. So the black just shows how far you've gone in this. So for the now, this is 3g6 there. So under white, we've got perk. Under black, how far we've gone in the variation, 3g6. And for now, the tournament's position 1. And there we are. So this is where we're starting from. And we're going to work from here. So I've got my book in front of me. And I know that the very first response for white that they talk about in this section, or this chapter that I'm reading on, is called the Austrian attack. And in the Austrian attack, the fourth move for white is this, and it brings out the white pawn. And we like one move for black, so we're not going to worry about anything else. And we've got bishop g7 like that. And there we are. So we've started down our move, and we're moving into one of the variations, or one of the lines that comes out of position 1. Now, I'm not going to go very shallow or very deep today. We're going to keep it fairly shallow and high level. If you're higher level or you've done your research, you're going to have a lot of lines coming out of every position. You might have 15 or 20 or 30. I'm going to keep this very simple and very shallow and keep it with just a few lines to show what I'm working on. And then later when I do more work and I have time to spend hours on it, I'll probably go deeper. So let's imagine here, at this position here was position 1, and now we've got in the first option for white, f4, and then we've got black coming down to bishop g7. And so this is going to be our continuation for line 1. If white did something other than f4, if I want to go to my opening book, you can see that, or I'll go back here. If I go to g6, if white did nf3, over here and jump up to f3, that would start up a whole new chain, and we'll start a whole new line for that. So for here, what we got is Austrian attack f4, black does bishop g7, and I'm going to right click this, and I'm going to go special annotation, critical open position. This is going to be the position that defines this line, and I'm going to call this line 1 when I'm through with it. So there we are. We have, and I'm going to even do that now before I forget. I'm going to go File, I'm going to go Save, and I'm not replacing it because I want to keep position 1 out there to use later. So this is going to be saved as a new line. We're going to go actually to 4, and you notice what I do is I always like the color that you're doing the repertoire for. I like that to be the critical position and the next position in the line. So I've got bishop g7, because when I'm doing my searches on critical positions later, I want the black move, because I'm playing black, to be the last position, so I can catch all of the white alternatives. If I make the white position the critical move, then it'll go out and find all of the games, when you're doing your searches, all of the games, and you're going to get all of the various black responses, and I'm focused on my one black response, and I don't want to lose things buried in other ones. There's some disadvantages. You might miss out on a new variation that you weren't thinking of, so you do have to look once in a while. But generally speaking, I like to focus on making the moves the same color as the repertoire I'm doing for. Those are the critical openings, and that's what goes in black as the last critical opening. So that's bishop g7, and this is now position 1, line 1. And now we're not done it, we just started it. But if I jump back over here and take a look into the perk, you can see, I'll just hide the ECO. You can see white is the perk, black is just position 1, and position 1, line 1 is there with bishop g7. So let's go back into here. So out of bishop to g7, I'm starting with the book, which says, hey, take a look at nf3. That's where you need to expect white to come from. Oh, and sometimes the book says, if I want to go back, sometimes the white goes bishop, what is it here? D3, right? And so, boom. And I'm going to click New Variation. And there we are. Within this one line, we're going to have our main line, and we're going to have our variation. Now, there's my critical opening, and I've got two responses for white I need to deal with. You can actually click over on the table. It's pretty cool. You can see, hey, I've got work to do, man. I need to fill out what I'm going to do when white does this, and I need to fill out what I'm going to do when white does that. What I can also do is click on my reference database, which is going to be very similar to my opening book, because my opening book was built from my reference database. You can see NF3 and oh, E5. That's interesting. E5 was played. And I can go over my reference database and go, yeah, E5 seems to be popular in history. What about amateurs? Remember we have that special book I made for white, low-ranked white players? Players playing white low-ranked. And E5 is the second most popular there, and Bishop E3 actually comes out a few times. Now, statistically, it's not nearly as common as NF3, so I'm going to focus most of my time on NF3 as a response. But I'm going to kind of put E5 in there too, I think. So NF3 is my big one. Bishop D3 we're going to deal with, and let's make sure we talk about E5. That's going to be a new variation as well. Now, if I do a lot of work with Bishop D3 and break that all down, and a lot of work with E5, and they all get buried in this one line, it may be time to break them out and actually move the critical position down to the responses to those types of moves as well. But there we are. We have the beginning of what our repertoire looks like. So we've got Bishop G5. I go back, and after NF3, the common response to the book that I've purchased that I'm kind of interested in at the moment is C5. So I'll go back here, and that is what we're looking at, and that's the black response to C5. We're not worried about alternatives if this is the move that we want. If there are better moves for black, we want to look at it. But if there are worse moves for black, we don't care, because we're not building this as a white player playing the black defense. We're building this as if we're playing black, so we don't care about any inferior moves. Now there's a couple of options. I think the two big ones, according to the book, is Bishop B5 check, and I just quickly check that here to make sure I've got that right. Bishop B5 check. That is the first option, and then the book says also look out for D takes C5. Here, look out for that as well. We're going to call that a variation as well. So these are the things you need to look at. And once again, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my reference, and I want to take a look at my mega database, which I can see, yeah, Bishop B5, D takes C5. Now, what about players that are not ranked highly? What do they do? Okay, they do DC5 more often. Bishop B5, and then I can see, well, there's a little bit of E4, E5, and it gets a little over there. But I can see now maybe what I'm going to need to do is take that. Oops, I've clicked it, and I didn't mean to do that. Let me go back. Oh yeah, that D takes C5, and what I want to do is, since in my reference, if I go back a move, in my reference with low-ranked white players, see with the pull down, I can change what we look at over here. And the reason I wanted my opening book is I can always go back and get my reference, and it's ready to go. My opening book and my reference, I can see Bishop B5 and D takes C5. And over here in my reference tab, I've looked up my subset of low-ranked players, and I can see, wow, over double D takes C5 is what they're going to play. So when I go to my notation, I'm going to make that my new main line. I do need to make sure Bishop B5 is taken care of, and in the book, that is the line they focus on. But I need to make sure D takes C5 is what I'm paying attention to. So the main line for me is the variation that's probably the one I'm going to see the most at the level I'm going to play. So here, the book says if we get into the situation, it's Queen A5 is the best move, and then 7 is Bishop D3, and then Queen takes C5, boom, and then Queen E2 is where we are. And then at this point, Black's best response is Bishop G4. Pow. All right, and what I can do is take a quick look at the ChessBase has LiveBase or Livebook, which allows me a quick evaluation based on the white's move, and you can see, oh, minimal advantage to white there, and all right, fair enough. And I'll do a quick analysis, and let's take a look at Houdini. Let's see what Houdini says, and you can see because ChessBase lets me go in and see into the cloud and see what other people's analysis. This is analysis going on right now, and it's about even is the ranking here, and I can see other people have done analysis to 23 depths and 25 depths. I'm only on 19, and they're coming out at well, this person came out with the most the highest quality move at 0.08. Right, that's basically the way ChessBase works. Is it gives credibility depending on how long you did it, how many depths you've done it, and things. It comes up. So that's their primary. You can see this is me, LT Bartleby, and I've just moved up to second. Also thinking H3 is best for white, and also thinking it's coming in at about an even game. So I'm not going to spend any more time on that. Later I'll do more analysis. Right now we're just going to take this and we'll mark that as even. And what I want to also make sure I do is take a look not just at the book, but at my reference. Click on home. Make sure I'm on low ranked white. And I can see there have been 10 games in my low ranked database. They all went queen a5, take c5. Good, that we were expected for. And then when I went, oh, sorry, that's when I go queen a5, what do they do? So I was looking at the white move, or the black move. I should be looking at the white move. So here we are at queen a5. My book says, hey, bishop d3. That's the move to look for. That's what white's best move is. But over here, I can see that and it's not uncommon. But the move that actually occurred the most by poorly ranked players is bishop d2. Bishop d2 there. So I'm making a variation at the moment. It's not a main line. I don't even know, does it even show up in the opening book? Oh, it's there in the opening book. It's very minor. You wouldn't look at it normally. But bishop d2, and I don't even have in my book what my response is for bishop d2. So at this case, what I like to do is I'll just do a quick look at the engine and see what I've got, and then I'll open up ECO and I'll start doing some research online to see. I've got a couple other books as well, and we'll look into them. But right now, queen takes c5, queen e2. This seems to be a very clear-cut response. The engine's looking at a couple other alternatives, but they're clearly advantages for white. Queen takes c5 seems to be the way to go. And I mean, it's self-evident if you look at the actual board rather than getting your head into the engine. You take a look at the board and you can see that's definitely what you want to do. So there's queen takes c5, and then at the moment that also looked like here. So we've started to build our database, and you can see this is our open repertoire database. I've got here this is one line that spreads out after 4 bishop g7, which is my critical opening. We don't have to put a critical opening if you don't want to. That you don't have to. But the whole advantage of doing the critical opening is if you've got this set as an opening database and you've got that set, when you do a search into other databases of games and say look for openings that are in my repertoire, it'll go out and find everything in this position and group it all together for you. Now, if this is early on like mine is in the 4th move and it's a large database, you're going to get a lot of games, and that may not be helpful. So in time, as you build this out, or as I build this out, I'll probably start maybe making not this the critical position, I'll make this the critical position, the 5th move, and then I'll have more lines, right? But as the critical positions get further down the line, the more lines you're adding over here to your database, your black repertoire. So you see I've got position 1, line 1. Well, this one for bishop g7 is going to have a lot of work in there, so it may end up being line 1a, 1b, 1c, or lines 1, 2, 3, how I do it. I do also want to point out that what I haven't been doing that you may have noticed is I haven't been using the add to repertoire to save it. What you can do when you've done this work is you can use this feature and you say, hey, do you want me to put this as a new line in the game, or do you want me to merge it with the one that's already there? There's nothing wrong with that, and you can definitely use that. But what it does is it automatically populates. I'm going to come over here and just save this like this. It populates this in using its own format, and I like using my format, so I save it this way myself. And by the way, I'm going to take this opportunity. I need to save and replace line 1. I don't want to keep adding line 1s. I've built out since my last save, so I'm going to replace. There's line 1, and I'm going to save it, and now my line 1 is a little further. The idea of right-clicking and adding to repertoire, I use that function when I find a game. When I'm looking at a game database and I think, wow, this is something I should add to my repertoire, it's interesting, I will right-click it then, and then it'll go through and I'll just have it merge into the repertoire that's already defined. I don't use it when I build my repertoire. I use it when I add to a repertoire that's already been built. So to be totally clear, just before I finish off, we can close this baby out, and we can go back to um, here and back to position one, and we talked about the most common move as actually NF3 and then bishop G7. And so what we've got over here is a new line, and we would right click this, and I would say, okay, hey, this is my next line, so I'm going to call it a critical opening position. I'm going to go over here, and I'm not going to replace it because I've opened up my position one record. I want to keep that there. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to call this. Actually, what I really should have been doing the last one is show the white move and then the black move, so we're clear what we're doing. And we'll call that position 2. And we'll go over there, and I can pop over here, and you can see the two lines. And you can see I made a mistake. What I should have done there, and I can go in and I can actually edit the game data. I should have called this F4, bishop G7, so we can see the two different lines. And now, oh, I called that position 2. Here I am making mistakes as I go. Edit the data. That's position 1, game 2. Getting this on the line 2. And now we have our two lines. They're very small. As I open that up, there's not a lot there yet. But you can see how we use the mega database and the opening books, and how we use our subset database to take a look at the types of moves that the subset will have, closer to what we're going to have. And you can see I clicked it while I made the mistake of opening up the low-ranked white in the reference database, so it was busy working there when I did that, but there it is. And you can see here that we now have the beginning of our own opening repertoire. And I close these up and come up. There's our opening repertoire, and it should work. We've got a couple of moves. What we can do is, if I open up a subset, where's my, here's white playbook. No, that's if I open up a subset of games, let's use this mega game list. And remember, in my previous videos, we generated reports. So we've got to make sure this is our repertoire database, and it is black repertoire database. And so what we can do with mega recent here is click on scan the database for games of your repertoire and generate a report. And it's going to zip through these games. These are games from 2014, and it's going to find games that have played openings similar to our repertoire, looking for those critical opening positions we talked about. And you can see 401 games out of my Austrian bishop G7 and 588 games, and that's just from this year. So we're very, very, very early on the opening repertoire tree. Right? We haven't gone very far, so at this point there's a lot to choose from. But we can go in and start seeing the games and start looking what's there. But you can see the repertoire now works, and we'll be able to do things like training and all the other good things that come with repertoires when you've got them. Now you just need to do the hard work of adding your lines. I can't help you with that. I'm a low-ranked player. I'm sure many of you, I'm sure almost all of you, are a higher ranked player than I am. That's the fun part, actually, the chess part. But at least, hopefully, this helps you get over the software part so you know how to do it. If you get a moment, I please encourage you click the link and subscribe as we continue to learn about ChessBase 12 and the different features and functionalities involved around opening repertoires. And I am building a repertoire for white and for black for low-ranked players, and I finished position 1 of white, and I actually put it into a book and a PDF, which if you're interested in, you can click on that link. That'll take the site. Will show where you can go get the book for position 1. For if you're a low-ranked player like me, at least you've got something to work with. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day, and thanks for watching. Cheers.